So, as Charles said, I'm Minister of Technology from Big Spaceship. I'm Josh. No heckling. So today I'm going to talk a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit about just Big Spaceship and give a little history. Talk a lot about our kind of creative process, our philosophy, how we're made up. Some of you may know a little bit about our history, may not. So I'm just going to assume that nobody knows anything. So if it's stuff you know, then sorry. And look at a few of our projects, client projects from history, and then focus a lot on some of our internal projects, stuff we do for ourselves to kind of keep the creative juices flowing and things like that, and some of our techniques later. I like when I do this to have it be more of a conversation, and I'm here for all of you to learn and get information from me, so I want to make sure I'm giving you the information you want. So I can see most of you pretty well, so if you have a question while I'm talking, don't be afraid to interrupt. You can shout it out, and I want to know what you want to know, be able to tell you. All right? And first, I want to learn a little bit about you. I'm used to speaking at a little more focused kind of audiences. AIGA kind of encompasses a lot of different disciplines and people. So how many people are work in interactive and digital? Oh, a lot. That's pretty good. Any programmers? All right. Okay. Okay, good. So, I'm Josh, Minister of Technology. Cool title. What does it mean? So, as Charles said, I kind of lead R&D. I started at Big Spaceship about 7 years ago. We were 6 people at the time, and I was the programmer. Before that, I worked in print design for a while, and then did interactive design and development. Started Big Spaceship as they needed a developer. When I showed up, I said, oh, I do both design and development. I want to do a little design too. And Mike said, yeah, that's fine. And then after a week of seeing what the designers were doing, I decided to let them handle it. So now we're about 40 people, and I manage a development team and consult on technology feasibility and do R&D and things like that. And just we have a pretty small kind of management team that I'm part of. So Big Spaceship. We call ourselves a digital creative agency. We're not a production shop. We're not a flash shop. We do creative and we're not another thing. We're not an ad agency. So we consider ourselves digital experts. But anything digital, whether it be online, installations, digital outdoor, kiosks, interactive, anything like that, we can do. And it goes from strategy all the way through to execution. And as I'll talk about later with our process, it's sort of a new, digital has a interesting difference from traditional marketing and advertising and creative, where the execution is very much tied to the concept, and you really have to have an understanding, we found, of the technology and the capabilities and what you're going to be building in order to come up with the real, the good ideas and what you can really do and push it where it goes. So we're in Dumbo, Brooklyn. We've been around 9 years, as I said. We're about 40 people strong. That's Manhattan Bridge and Brooklyn Bridge right in there. If anybody's out in New York, come visit, please. It's a nice spot. It's our office. There's me in the office. As you see, we have a very open kind of floor plan, which is done on purpose to kind of help facilitate a lot of our working philosophy, which is centered around collaboration. And collaboration between disciplines. We used to sit by discipline, which I'll get to in one second, what disciplines we have. So all the designers would sit down at one end, all the developers sit down at the other end, and producers and stuff together. But now we sit, each little aisle you see is a team. We have different project teams. These are the teams. They all have logos and names. So what the names are. So all of them except for Cobra Kai are multidisciplinary teams that are made up of designers, producers, developers. Cobra Kai is a team of resources that kind of float between teams, like copywriters and strategists who are more applicable to particular projects, or we don't have one for each team, more specialized things, 3D artists, things like that. So I keep talking about these disciplines. These are the 4 disciplines that are represented at Big Spaceship. Strategy, production. Production is like producers, project managers type people, but we like to call them producers instead of project managers to kind of emphasize the creative element of their job, that they're not just making charts and making numbers and making budgets and keeping people on schedule. They actually are part of the creative process as much as anybody else. And typically, at a lot of firms like ours, we found this is kind of the flow of work. So strategy deals with the kind of beginning parts of a project. Understands the goals, does a discovery, learns about what we're trying to do, and then comes up with a scope of what we want to do, passes it on to the producers who put a budget around it, a schedule. They pass it to design, who makes pretty pictures, and then they pass it to the poor developers at the end who have to make it all work without ever having seen it before, which is not fair. So we prefer to do it this way. At any given point in a project, every discipline has a voice, especially the early stages of concepting. When we have brainstorms, we make sure to have at least one person from each discipline represented, if not more. We try to open it up as much as possible and get people who are interested in whatever the project is to come in and offer ideas. And ideas come from anywhere. Ideas come from interns. Ideas come from the person answering the phone. Anybody can have an idea about any particular thing. So it's silly to have somebody somebody just own the idea process and then have to just push it out to everybody else. Also, we find that if a developer, well, there's a couple of things the way this saves time. On paper, it looks like it takes more time, but really it saves time, because if a project's going along through design and there's ideas that are technically infeasible or difficult, then by the time it gets to developers, they say, I can't do this. They send it back up the chain to start over and then go back down again. With this model, you've got those voices at the beginning, the design and developers who can understand what's capable and what can be done and what should be done, which makes the whole thing go a lot smoother, and you get much more interesting results. And it's better kind of doing new things, and it's a better way to innovate. Also, if you have a developer at the end who's working on building something and making it work, and they've seen how the ideas kind of come to be and how it's grown, and they see maybe a little bit of their idea in it, and they understand they really internalize what's going on, they're going to put, it may sound cheesy, but they're going to put a little more love into it. And I think it really shows in the final quality of what you're doing. That you get a little invested in it. That's another reason we actually don't typically work with freelancers, and when we do, we make sure they're working on site. Just because, same reason, we want people who are who are proud of what they're doing and really putting their all into it and trying to get the best possible product out. So with the team setup, everybody's sitting in a row. The developer's walking their desk, they look at a designer screen, they see what they're doing, they ask them about it. It creates a lot of opportunities for impromptu meetings, make sure everybody's communicating. This collaboration, the kind of multidisciplinary collaboration, you put a lot of responsibility on the people doing the work. You have to have faith that they're going to be communicating. And the way we manage is a little bit of a hands-off style. So each team is working fairly autonomously. We give them a brief. We have them involved in the brainstorming from the beginning. They're responsible for coming up with the schedule and the budget and keeping it under budget and doing as much work as they can. So it makes sense to have them all sitting together as it's almost like a little mini. It's almost like recreating what we were like when we were 6 people, kind of 4 times. Any questions about that? It's all clear? Makes sense? We have about, it was on the beginning slide. It said 40. I'm just kidding. We have about 40 people right now. We never said, we want to get to be 100 people or we want to be 70 people or whatever. We grew up to about 60, I think, 3 years ago. It was about the biggest we've ever been. And then we kind of evened out, went up and down, and kind of organically arrived around 40, 50. And it's just the kind of right size for us. It's manageable. Everybody knows everybody. For the amount of work we want to do, it feels right to keep our culture alive, which is very important to us as well. Most of the rest of my presentation is about our work, our environment, our work culture. So it kind of ended up being the right size for us. So now on to a couple of, speaking of culture and our philosophy, just some kind of tenets we live by and work by. We don't use creative as a noun. We never refer to the creatives and then the tech people, because everybody is creative. We don't have a creative director, we have a design director. So we want to enable everybody to be creative. Even in the comping process, in the early phases of a project, developers will be making animation tests or doing functionality tests or prototypes, working with designers. So like I said before, ideas come from anywhere, creativity comes from everybody, and we want to enable everybody to do that. If they're not creative, then they don't really belong at the ship. Similar note, it's a policy we have. Talent is great, and we have, I should say this too, I'm showing a lot of stuff, and Big Spaceship is the crew. It's the people who do the work. And I get my hands in there sometimes, but really we have, I feel we have the most talented people on earth. They're just amazing people. But no matter how talented somebody is, if they're an asshole or have an ego, it doesn't make it worth it. And we don't really have to enforce this so much. It's just kind of like we've had some mistakes, some assholes will slip through the cracks. And it just becomes really clear just through kind of day-to-day working with the team and how people collaborate and have to work together that it just doesn't work. It becomes clear it's not a good match either way, and they end up going on their way. We don't have to say like, you're an asshole, get the fuck out of here. It just happens. So for people out there, any students here, this can be, when I speak to students, I should change this to don't be an asshole. Here's some clients we've worked with over the years. We see a lot of entertainment clients. We kind of cut our teeth. For a lot of years, we worked almost strictly with movie studios. We've worked with just about everyone. Like I said, for a while, it was pretty much all the work we were doing, just kind of experience sites for movies as big as Da Vinci Code. It's a pretty big movie. And I would put kind of big ones. Sin City, which people forget. Everybody's all excited about Mickey Rourke's comeback. Like, this was really his comeback, Sin City. He was awesome in that. We did some really killer sites for like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It was awesome. We prided ourselves for a while on making sites that were better than the movies we were making the sites for. iRobot, awesome site. So we did that for a long time. And then, question?
And part of your sales people, the people that go get business, were they from Hollywood?
Oh, that's a very good question. The question was, I'm sorry, is there more? I cut you off. The question was our sales force or the people who go get business from Hollywood? That's a great question because it's part of something I meant to bring up, which is that we don't have any salespeople. We never have. All of our work, knock on wood, is always incoming inquiries. And the reason that, I think the reason we kind of got into this niche of doing Hollywood work, which is weird because we're in New York, is the founder of the company, when he left another company and started Big Spaceship, he took with him one of the clients was Miramax. And Hollywood, the kind of studio world, is very tight and they talk a lot and hang out. And so we did some great work for Miramax, and then somebody from Sony says, hey, guy at Miramax, who did that work for you? And I said, oh, Big Spaceship. So they call us, and word just got around. Just through the quality of the work we were doing, people saw it and other studios took notice, and then they all started hiring us to do different work. So we're very lucky, and just kind of was a good niche to be in and great for this kind of stuff we wanted to do and great way to get our name out there. And then eventually over the years we kind of moved away. I think right now, the last few months has been one of the only times in our history that we haven't had some kind of movie project going on. But Sony Pictures is one of our oldest clients. We worked with them for about 8 years. Pardon me. Everybody told me to drink water. I'm going to pass out. Nobody wants that. So eventually we started kind of moving, this, I think as internet advertising kind of started to mature and people realized the value of this kind of entertainment advertising, we started working with other brands, as seen on this list, as they're commonly referred to as lifestyle brands, like Corona and ABC, a lot of entertainment stuff, but a lot of products. So I'm just going to show a couple of projects that we've done historically. These are a little old, a few years old, but these are a couple of projects that got a lot of notice and won some awards and kind of helped put us on the proverbial map. First is Nike Air Max. Nike relaunched their Air Max line of shoes, a totally new design, like full one-piece air pocket on the bottom. And the brief we got from Nike was one of the best briefs we ever got, was people can't stick their foot in the screen and feel what the shoe feels like, but we want the next best thing. And Nike's this is direct with the client. They're a great company to work with because they really want to innovate and push the envelope and do new things. So I'm actually going to show you this site. You got volume. So there's a running shoe and a basketball shoe, or a line of running shoes and basketball shoes. It's actually one of the few times we got product. I got some basketball shoes. They're pretty awesome. So this idea was their television campaign. A lot of their messaging was these shoes are so comfortable they allow you to do whatever like longer than you would usually. So it's about more world. It's about running just past where you usually stop. They had some cool television. They had a great television campaign where these weird things started happening because they were running just a little bit longer. There's one that I especially liked. They had this like desert and this guy was running, and they see another guy run, and they look at their identical twins. And they kind of look around. They've never met, obviously, and it's because they just. And one of them says, "I've never run this far before." So we took that into a little more kind of fantasy. Online you can do a little more. We didn't want to keep it so real, so we started thinking about the runner's high and the zone of a basketball player being in the zone, and how these shoes can enable you to go beyond where you're used to going. So you choose whether to run or do the basketball. We'll do the basketball one. So everything you've never seen is just beyond where you always stop. It's kind of so the guy starts out in this kind of desaturated, normal world, and as he starts playing basketball, this was great. We did this green screen shoot with this 4-foot wide green treadmill. This guy's dribbling on a treadmill. It's pretty impressive. All the music's original. So the call to action is basically just use your keyboard. I don't know if you guys see that right here. Use your keyboard. And as you hit the keys, it starts showing these animations. There's like a foreground layer. There's 3 layers: foreground, a background, and a middle ground. And then the arrow keys make the guy do an animation. This guy's also like 5'10", and he could jam. It's pretty impressive. So as you kind of make your visual composition, it's actually recording your keystrokes, and at the end of this, you can send it to somebody, and they go to the site, and they actually see what you just did. And it'll say like Josh's keyboard above it. And this is a really incredibly fun project for us because the running graphics and the basketball graphics are all different. So there's 30 animations for each. So we really opened it up to the entire studio, and just everybody, interns, everybody was just generating art, and we had these giant reviews of all these different animations and just threw in whatever we could. Someplace in here there's an elephant in a bubble, but I can never find it. It might be on the running one. So then there's this kind of canned, oh yeah, there it is, a little. So then that's kind of the canned finish, and then you kind of come back to the regular world. The running one's the same, except everything's blue, and it's a woman running.
Is there any significance to the elephant in the bubble?
No, we tried to. Some of the things were very. We had the kind of the graffiti look. Kind of get this urban thing going, and then we wanted to evoke what the shoes were feeling like. Sometimes more literal, like. Oh, it's an elephant, which is a heavy, cumbersome thing, but it's in a bubble floating. For the running one, there's actually one, talk about literal, there's one where a bunch of pillows actually come up. She's actually running on pillows, which is pretty funny. So, we had in mind like the kind of, there's one where she's running when like ice cubes hit her. So we wanted to have some stuff that was, a little more abstract, and some stuff that was really like kind of purely evocative of what's going on. Let's find the pillows. Like feathers, lots of air. There's the elephant. There we go. And it's just ridiculous stuff. We had these meetings. People come in like, I made an elephant, a 3D elephant in a bubble. Like, awesome. Throw it in there. There's trees. I don't know where the frickin' pillows are. Believe me, there's pillows. I don't know where they are. Anyway. So yeah, that's why. We definitely, put some thought about what the imagery should be. And then the other half of the site is actually let you learn about the shoes and eventually, of course, buy them. This is one of my favorite features. An intern did this. See this little animation? They gave us this photo and this photo, and this intern did this, and it's amazing. And there's some cool color effects. There we go. Changes colors depending on which shoe you look at. So that's Nike. Any questions about Nike?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that when you work typically on a project, you have your 4 core teams.
Yeah.
Flash America being my favorite. And on that specific project, you had so much artwork going on.
Right.
I'm wondering how you all collaborate when it comes to, I guess, the workflow.
Okay.
Each other team, you got 7 people on this project for Corona. bunch of people on a project for Nike. How does that work? How do they overlap like that?
The question was about kind of cross-team work and collaborating between teams, these project teams. Actually, this project was actually done before we had the team system in place. The team system we've had for 1.5 years, since a year ago January. We had talked about it since we were like 20 people. And actually, I was always against it. I thought it was a terrible idea. And finally, I said, okay, and it's the greatest thing we've ever done. But it's still a good question, though. Because it is, I mean, sometimes we get a bigger project that requires more than one team can handle, so we'll crab it. You know, and also, the schedule and project sizes never fits right into, oh, this team's free and it can start working on something and this team's perfect for this team. Some projects are 2 people, some projects are 15 people. So it's really just a lot of communication and you know, just scheduling and working people out and trying to, you know, again, trusting the people to communicate and get it done. For this project, we actually generated some really cool internal tools. I built the kind of framework for the site and built a way for people to create these animations and then just plug them right into the site. And some of the animations are code generated. So some of the ones with just like the little flowing colors off the back are all done with code. And we did that for a couple reasons. One, because you can do some cool effects. And 2, because all the video stuff takes a while to load. So if you're on a slow connection, if you start the process, and this is stuff you got to think about when you're thinking about digital. It's not just like, oh, you want to do this and this. You know, Flash has limited capabilities. Online, you got to think about file size and bandwidth. So we wanted people, as soon as you get into the experience, if you're on a slow connection, you're going to have to wait for all the video effects to load. But the code-based animation is all just, you know, created on the fly, so that stuff's instantly available. So you at least have a baseline number of effects. So for the code-based animations, we wanted to give, you know, the coders knew how to create them, but we wanted to give the designers a way to kind of visualize what's possible. So one of my developers actually created a tool that had a kind of dummy animation and had just tons of interface elements, sliders and knobs for changing all the parameters that could be sent to the code. And they could see what the effects were instantly, and then they could just like hit a button and it would copy the code out and then send it to a developer to program it. And we posted that on our labs blog, and it got a lot of great response. So we ended up kind of skinning it and putting it out there as sort of a tool. But things like that, you know, having internal review meetings and just keeping people, you know, it's hard. Making people talk is hard. Like I said, you gotta. It's just, if it's part of the culture, you just have to teach people that the communication is important. And the team system, we did that sort of, you know, to encourage people to talk all the time. Does that answer your question? It kind of rambled.
Yeah.
More or less.
Rambled a little bit, but I appreciate it.
Okay, sweet, awesome. Any more questions on Nike? All right. Another one that got a lot of attention was this HBO Voyeur project. HBO it was a sort of original programming. It wasn't an advertisement for a particular show. It was just sort of a brand move. The message was that HBO is the place to go for original storytelling. And they hired one of the Scotts, somebody related to Ridley Scott, I think his son, to direct this. They shot like an apartment building, like an 8-unit apartment building, as if the wall had been sheared off. And it's all, you can't hear what's going on, but you can see. And all these stories happen, and they kind of interrelate as people meet in the stairways and stuff. And their idea was to show it on demand. You could watch each like apartment story on demand. They did an event, a 2-day event in New York, where they actually projected the entire thing on the side of a building. And they wanted it online. So their agency, BBDO, came to us and said, hey, we need this stuff online in a video player. And we said, well, we think you're missing a big opportunity here to deliver this in a very special way, more than just a regular video player. Anybody hear about the scandal that came after this project? Anyone? Of course you did. This ended up in scandalous. So the binoculars are actually BBDO's idea. We want to just go to this. So here's this is what the film looks like. And we didn't create any of the film. It was all done and provided to us. So we wanted to, the idea here was to, you know, all this incredible content, we wanted to be front and center. Let people experience it as much as they could. Keep the interface elements minimal but still powerful. And to do things that you can't do when you're watching this stuff on demand. So for example, there are different stories where the characters interact. And with this, you can actually unveil certain groupings and focus on those. You can also zoom in, scroll around and get a closer look. And they had they had 6 different composers create a score that kind of goes along and fits the mood of what's happening. So we created a way where you can click on one and it will transition to a different score at the point that you're watching, so it'll stay matched up with the action. And then also, in addition to this, there's a bunch of exclusive web content that we kind of populated around this 3D kind of abstract city. So the 3D city is created all with code, and the building fronts is all photography that designers and people on the team went out and took in New York. We have another unofficial kind of tenet of Big Spaceship is, if at all possible, don't use stock anything. So we do a lot of we kind of generate our own stock catalog, going out and taking pictures, and being in New York obviously gives us a lot of opportunities to take a lot of different photos. There was a site where we needed cloud animations, and the guy went up on the roof with a video camera and shot the clouds rolling by. So these little stories take place in kind of numerous episodes over days. This one, these guys are kind of watching this dude who's up to no good. This is my favorite. This one is just 5. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 7 days. If you watch it each day, the only thing that happens is he gets a little higher off the ground. And then that was the end of the first day. And then the last day, he's like floating in the air, and that's what happens. So some of these are really dark too. One of them's like in a morgue. This guy's kind of playing around with dead bodies, and then that's like this cheerleader fantasy thing going on. But all in all, there's you think I'm kidding? You can find it. No, that's the morgue one. Yeah, this one is it's like Family Man, and then you click in the middle someplace, and there's like a cheerleader dancing around. Anyway, you'll look at it, you can find it. So there's like 2 hours original material on the site, and it was very well received. It won the entire campaign, won the Grand Prix at Cannes, which is what led to the scandal, because there was issues with crediting and who did what. That was big fun. And also another big part of this was we allowed people, we made this as portable as possible, so you can download this in a million different formats. On iPod, this is pre-iPhone. iPod, QuickTime, you can download just the apartments. There's a screensaver where the whole thing plays. So it's a really fun project, great material to work with, obviously, and really gave us a chance to do some cool stuff. Questions about Voyeur? There's a question in the back? Suggestions to avoid the scandal. Go to the press. It's the kind of landscape of the advertising world and kind of the agency model is, it's still really young, and people don't know how to deal with it. There's different new paradigms. Like we're listed as a production agency, but we came up with with the strategy for just the digital part. We didn't shoot the film. We didn't come up with the big idea, but we kind of flexed our digital muscles and counseled them on how this could best be done, and it was a big part of the campaign and added a lot. So how should that be recognized? It's hard for, I don't want to get too much into it. If you go online, the whole traditional versus digital agency and credit and stuff, people just love going off about it, being ridiculous. So I don't get too much into it. It is, it's a growing industry. It's still brand new, and I think it'll work itself out. Yep.
Conceptually, how do you present to your clients these?
Very good question. The question was, conceptually, how do we present? For Nike, actually, I should have brought them. For Nike, we did these cool, like, rough animatics with, like, a guy just like this, just going, across the screen. And we found stock video, and you can see the watermark going on them and stuff. It depends on the clients, like how much imagination they have. We do a lot of just static comps, storyboards, wireframes. When necessary, we'll do like functional prototypes, let them play around with something. But the usual stuff. It's just like any design. just like static design, except the functionality has to be explained a little more. There's a story behind it. It's right. It sits right in between, film and statics. Just you have to kind of spell it out for people sometimes. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes they don't get it until it's in front. They think, it doesn't sound cool, and then once they start playing with it, they realize that it is cool. Anything else? Yep.
So the people that are coming to you with inquiries, are they generally larger agencies or clients directly? You mentioned Nike was direct, that agent was direct.
Right. The question was how much of our work is from agencies, or the question was roughly how much is from agencies, how much is direct to client. We prefer to work direct to client, even though we're not an ad agency. I think it's about roughly 70% direct to client, 30% with agencies. This year we've done maybe a little bit more agency work just because this year's been not easy on all of us. But we do, like all of the movie stuff is all direct to clients. Nike was, Corona had an agency involved. So yeah, it's about 70-30, I'd say. We have had good relationships with agencies. We have had not good relationships with agencies. So we're still open-minded and are ready to talk. And I was just telling somebody outside actually that it's a little promising. I think agencies more often now will at least say the right things at the beginning. They'll say, oh, we want a partner, we want you involved early, we want you to be an equal partner in the creative process. Whether they do it or not is a question. But the fact that they're acknowledging and saying it at first, I think they realize that there are issues and that that work has to be done on how that relationship works. So now, if you get, I'm not going to show any more client work right now. Well, I'm going to show some a little later, but you can go to our website. All of our stuff's there. You can have fun with it. But for now, I'm going to talk a little bit about our culture, our environment, stuff that doesn't get exposed as much. Another unofficial motto we have coined by one of our designers, fun begets quality. Our theory is that if you're going to, you spend most of your life at work, so why not have it be a fun place to be? Besides that, being creative for a living, being creative on demand is not the easiest thing, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So we do our best to give people outlets so that they don't burn out, and they get to continually try new things. Not only does it keep them from burning out, but it helps us learn new skills and new techniques we can apply to projects, and just have fun with stuff. And especially being in the technology industry, you got to keep up. Stuff's changing every minute, literally, and we have to know what's out there. So we encourage our team to play and to do stuff for us and have fun. So experiment constantly, like I said, not just for clients.
Do you have any examples of stuff that you guys do internally to kind of?
I have a lot of examples,
Okay.
and they're coming up right here, a bunch of them. They're awesome. Some of them are directly related to technology. Some of them are not. Some of them are just fun experiments, like Mustache Day, holiday tradition. We do this at the holidays every year. The idea is this Phil's my favorite. So everybody starts growing we announce it like 6 weeks, 2 months before, and everybody starts just letting their facial hair grow. So everybody starts coming to work with beards, and then the day, it's kind of the reveal. Everybody comes to work one day with a mustache. This year we actually, the same day as Mustache Day, we had our holiday party and we went to medieval times. So it was pretty killer. I meant to take this slide out. Oh, that's my dog. I'm not even going to talk about him. Anyway, the women participate too. We got some fake mustaches for them. There's me, Tyson. So they're all real, all these real. This guy, this dude's, I mean, that's a frickin' mustache right there. That guy's German too, so it's a little classic. A little more on topic, experimentation. Streisand is just a little piece that some guys made a couple years back, all shot in the neighborhood and starring people from the office.
Short on looks, tall on action.
3 years ago, my wife was brutally killed by some punk to keep me from testifying. Now for hire. You get in my way, and I will make you pay. You won't find me in the phone book. I will find you. My name is Rick Streisand, and I'm coming for you. Prepare to be hunted.
Yeah, so, just a little fun in the neighborhood. The guy who, that's one of our art directors. His name's Tyson, his actual name. And he is 6'7". I love the shot where he jumps and then you just see his shoe. Free it just doesn't make any sense. And he slapped one of my developers at the time. So, just, fun, just playing with the, and again, this stuff, I should say, there are other places out there, like, there are video shops that do stuff. It's not like the end-all be-all of video production technology, but we're doing this stuff just, we do it in a week, or we do it in a couple of days, and just kind of bang this stuff out. And I'm really proud of this stuff, because I think the guy's just doing incredible things. So this was a experiment we did a while ago. Foosball was a big deal in the office for a while before Guitar Hero and then ping pong. And, but this guy got a couple of well, I'll just let the video speak for itself. So we put the sensors in the goals and hooked it up to a Flash application, which was projecting animations as each team scored. It kind of kept score and got more dramatic animations. The guy who built it is on the left. He gets his butt kicked in this game. So the kind of big scheme with this, which never actually fully happened. We almost got it there. We were going to have it keep like you log in to play foosball, and then it was going to keep your stats and post it real time on the site. We got close. So sensors, we learned things from this. We learned that first they use these like contact kind of piezo sensors, I think, and they just got like the score was like 100 to -11, and just because of the vibration of the table. So then they switched to light sensors, which worked much better. This is something that's been going on recently. We've got this magnetic strip and a set of actual Ginsu knives, and just started going to the kitchen and seeing these different things every day. I had no idea who was doing it, but somebody started documenting. We have like 30 of these pictures. They're all on Flickr. But I personally just would go in the kitchen purposely to see what was going on with the knives. Okay, now, all right, so anybody seen Preloaders? Anybody? Yeah. So if you ask anybody in the studio, they'll claim it was their idea, but it was actually mine. No, it was a collective thing. We've joked for a while. Everybody knows what a preloader is, Flash preloader. It's the thing you see at the beginning of a site that says loading and has a number, and then you have to wait and stuff comes up. We've historically taken a lot of pride in our preloaders and put a lot of care into making them really cool and not just having them be an afterthought. The problem with that is that sometimes the designers get carried away and make preloaders that are like a meg, and then you have to, and then it's like that's stupid because then you have to wait for that to load, and then you have to put a preloader on it. So we had this whole joke about making a site that was the preloaders were so big that they needed preloaders. So then we'd make a preloader that loaded the preloader, et cetera. So we fairly recently last year, a guy was like really into the idea, and just like I'm going to had like a few days of time, and he just banged it out. And so we made a site that I'm just gonna let it play. For those who haven't seen it, we started out with just our preloaders from history. And it's just exactly what I said it is. It's a preloader that loads the next preloader that loads and things. It just goes on and on. And we just get it kind of lark, and it's just people just started commenting saying, this is the greatest thing. I love this. People start watching it all the time. Like, I can't believe this. This is the thing you like can't wait to be over, and now I'm sitting here staring at them over and over again. What the hell's wrong with me? And we made a screensaver that people download, and so then we set up a whole. At first was ours, and then we talked to some of our friends, our agencies we're friends with, and asked them to get some of theirs. And then we created a public submission thing. You can go on the site now and submit a loader, and we provide a template for how to set it up, and then we'll put it on the site. And just recently, we actually did something for the first time, which is we saw a loader on a site that we liked and put out on Twitter. There's a Preloaded Twitter account that said, hey, we like this loader, who did it? And within like a day, they contacted us and submitted it, so now it's on the site. So it's just a fun project, kind of a. Now we feel like it's sort of a archive. Is like we've got like almost over 100 preloaders, and you can filter by date. They go back to 2002. So yeah, so check it out. It's really it's a fun thing. And there's also a joke, but O is actually the art from a preloader that I made for Adobe, a tutorial on Adobe's site, how to make a preloader, like 5 years ago. And people are still using it. Shows if you go to ESPN and look at their baseball game cast, it's all over that. And people just took it, like the point was, here's how you make a cool preloader, here's a template, take the art out and put in your own. But people just took it and used the little circle. And it's everywhere. It's on New York Times and ESPN, so it's this running joke. And my buddy and developer, Jamie, our associate technical director, did an updated tutorial, like with newer technology, because mine was like really old and outdated. And so his goal was to like take over my preloader. Questions about Preloaded? Oh, damn it. My phone's going to die. It's going to be embarrassing. Here's another kind of physical computing thing we undertook recently. People wanted to start playing with motors and machines and things, and we came up with this idea. Well, the first idea was we want to build something that measures some sort of comparison. There was an idea of making like a thing that filled up a water glass and then drained it, but that was way too hard. So we came with this hope versus despair idea, which basically it's software that pings Twitter every 30 seconds and does a search for little smiley face emoticons and frowny face ones. And then it comes up with an index of the relationship, and then it shows this face depending on what, there's like 10 faces, and it spins and shows what's going on Twitter. That's the error. That's if it fails to connect to Twitter. Here's a little video of their, and we used, I don't know if you can hear it, makes this really satisfying noise. And this was shot by the developer who built it, so it's not the best camera work, so brace yourself. There's a great shot, though, at the end. So this is how it works. It's got a cable. And look, fun developer code stuff. And we used this version had a little servo motor, which was a bad choice. This is the thing, we learned about sensors first, now we're learning about motors. Servo motors, I don't know if anybody knows anything about servos. We learned the servo motors twist, but they only go a certain distance. They don't spin all the way around. And so that was a problem. So we had to shape it a certain way because it couldn't spin all the way around. And it also melted eventually. So Hope vs. Despair died. But now there's version 2. All new faces, all new hardware. This one's made out of wood too. The other one's made out of like poster board. So this is Hope vs. Despair version 2, which has a camera with the name of the motor. It's not an axle. It's got another name, but it spins all the way around. And it's much more durable. And so hopefully it'll live. And we're actually very soon, maybe even at the end of this week, or very soon we're actually going to have a site, hopeversusdespair.bigspaceship.com, which is sort of the online version of this, which has the current, it's going to be like a online, it shows the face that's current with Twitter, and it'll have we're keeping track of this data over time. So you can check like the day by hour. You can check the last like month, and it shows, it graphs out the kind of index you can see. So maybe there'll be trends. I don't know, maybe not. We'll see. But it's a fun project. The guys had a great time doing it. Learned about circuit boards, and we use these boards called Fidgets, which has these little USB sensors and motors that you can get that have this API that's really easy to use. Oh God, I'm getting nerdy. So anyway, if anybody has any question about fidgets, let me know later. Yeah.
So what was
Is this about fidgets? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So what did the brief say that came down from upper management for that servo motor thing?
Oh, it was totally from the bottom up. The idea. It was a couple of guys on the team who were like, we want to build something that moves, and we were like, okay, write up a pitch, and they said this is what it is. This is how much it'll cost. We want to buy these motors that are like $25-50. I'm like, okay, do it. As long as it takes this much time. We try to keep these projects down to like a week or less, and a few people. So it's like anything you can do in a week, and then we'll bang it out, or even less is better. So like Preloaded, we banged out like 3 or 4 days, and then put it up. And we actually, it was also, Preloaded was actually an experiment in kind of guerrilla marketing and sort of proof of concept. We didn't say anything about it or post about it anywhere. We just, everybody in the company posted on Twitter. We put it on our blog, and then the traffic just went crazy. And then once we saw it was successful, then we decided to devote some time, another week or another few days to kind of adding on to it. So, yep.
So there's no like formalized 20% like Google or anything?
Oh, right. The question is there a formalized 20/80 like rule like Google like work on your own stuff sometime? No. It's just the natural flow of this business, doing a services business. Sometimes you're working until 2 in the morning on projects. Sometimes you're really light for a week. So when people are light, they know, we want them to be, and the people want to do this stuff, it's they're psyched about it. So we don't have to force them to be like, do something cool and learn. They just, they want to do it, and they come up with the coolest stuff. It's so much fun. It's awesome. One of my developers bought on eBay this old like coin slot, like an arcade thing, like a 25-cent with a red button, that you push. And it's just sitting on his desk. He's like, one day I'm going to do something with this and hook it up to something. And he took a keyboard apart once, and I don't know. So now this is another one, the importance of smoke machines in hot glue. This one actually directly relates to a client project immediately after. So NTAG is, so we make a lot of, I haven't shown any today, but we make, when we're showing our projects, our online projects, we usually don't want to click through, or for award submissions, we make these what we call sizzle videos, or sort of like trailers, but after the fact, they just kind of animate through and have text and show what the project's all about. And at the end, we have this logo animation, sort of like you see like at the beginning of a movie, So we had an old one that was very cool, it had Celine Dion soundtrack. And, but we changed our branding since then, and so these guys had just been cranking on Corona for like 3 months, really hard project, and wanted to make a new one. And the inspiration for it, they watched this will date people. Who remembers HBO back in the early days when a movie started, it had this crazy animation of like over this city and up into space, and the logo goes nee, 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 and the logo flies out of the sky. They had this like 10-minute documentary on how they made that they would put in between movies, like a movie that ended at 9:45, next one would start till 10, so they'd use this as filler and they'd show this documentary. So these guys found that and watched that. They used some cool techniques to make like explosions, like 2 pieces of acetate, black acetate, and put holes in it and overlapped them and put it on a light board and then like move them like this. It makes this explosion. They watched all the Star Wars documentaries, the little dolls and stuff, and the little explosions. So they wanted to the idea was to do something with as many analog effects as possible. It ended up being composited digitally, but they wanted to do this. And again, like I said before, there are companies out there who do this stuff way better. We're not Pixar. Well, they don't do that shit. We're not like whatever Tim Burton's stop motion studio. We're doing this on a shoestring. It's just guys just kind of going into we've got this big room where we make a mess and play ping pong, and putting this together. So it started with a giant paper mountain. Some of the inspiration for this came from the Paramount logo. That was sort of it was an homage to the Paramount mountain. This thing's big too. It was like this tall. It's big, all made out of paper. And then what happened next? They started building this rig to. I don't know. This guy, one of our producers, had this stuff at home. I have no idea why. It's kind of scary, but. So he's built this rig to do this motion. We have this. One of our investments recently was a super fancy Nikon D3 camera, which is awesome. All the photos you see that look really nice are taken with that camera. So they're going to do this kind of stop motion, camera move. So they're marking off all the increments by hand, which they screwed up, of course, and had to start over. Built this deal. The mountain's on like a turntable thing. Just some kind of put together some lighting. We've got this. So this room we have this whole room dedicated. It's got the walls green. We don't do it like real video, like the green screen thing I talked about for Nike. We actually use a different studio. We hired a studio to do that. We don't have we do like photo shoots and stuff in here and like kind of small scale video. Nothing really that ambitious. I guess this is pretty ambitious. So here's a test shot on the camera, the kind of establishing shot. And then this is one of their first attempts at doing the camera move, which kind of came out shitty. Whoa, oh God, oh. So like that sucked. So did some tweaking. This I think is the final one. Much better. Yeah, nice. Yeah, so that's the final one they used. As I mentioned, the best purchases ever at Big Spaceship was a smoke machine. Highly recommend it. They only cost like $25, and it's just, I mean, they're the greatest. I should have had a vid the day we got it. We did all this. We have a strobe light too, so. So here's some test shots with the smoke, and I made a Big Spaceship logo. There she is. Of course, they painted the background black for some unknown reason, because later they realized, oh shit, and they had to go back and paint it green. Well, I guess their like designer mentality took over. Speaking of a quick green screen story, this is good. There's a company agency from Mexico City called Grupo W, who are amazing. Check their shit out. They're completely incredible and totally amazing guys. They should come speak. Actually, I'll talk to Charles. They would love it. And they did. I saw them speak once, and they did this project where they're doing this all this green screen stuff and this animals and jungle scene, and they needed a chameleon, and they put it in front of the green screen, and it is a true story, and it turned green. And they were like, shit, what do we do? And so they did some research, and they learned that there's one color that a chameleon cannot reproduce, which is pink. So they did a pink chroma key for the chameleon. Fortunately, we didn't have that problem. We just have idiots who paint the thing black. This is like the sky in the background. They did this kind of watercolor thing on this paper and then poked holes in it and shined a light behind it to make the stars. Paper rocket ships. Phil shows up a lot. It's paper rocket ships. This is this mouth they built. It's kind of bad. It's got a rose in its mouth there, but didn't. You know. Here's oh, Phil's got a mohawk. This is like they're putting smoke in the vacuum cleaner tube, and then their video, and then he's blowing doing the mouth video. So sort of a mixture of video and stop motion. It's high tech. All right, you ready to see how it came out? Let's get some volume. And again, original sound design. We have a sound designer who's not at full time. He used to be, but he moved to California. He's amazing. You ready? Good stuff, right? How badass is that? They did the smoke trails to the rocket. They actually they did the vacuum cleaner hose again, and they put a stick on it and had smoke coming out of it, and like went like this, and filmed the smoke coming out of it. But the big explosion in the background, some of it's illustrations, animated, but the like lights and stuff is that thing with the acetate in the light box. It's really cool. So immediately after this, when they're finishing this up, our smoke machine investment paid off. Adobe came to us and said, hey, for their big Max conference, I don't know how many people have been to Max? Not many. They do this big conference every year at Max. They announce all their new technology, and they have this. And historically, before last year, the branding for it was these like really kind of dumb stock landscape photos. I'm not sure what it was supposed to evoke, but it's just like a cornfield, like a big sky. And they'd have like 3 or 4 of them. So last year, they wanted to emphasize the kind of creative side more than the developers, and they approached a bunch of agencies, us and Blitz and Too Advanced and a couple others, and wanted each of us to create a landscape, certain parameters, and then they kind of use that as the branding. So the stuff was going to be on the site, appear on these giant screens at the event, on billboards, printed material, T-shirts, everything, which is really exciting for us. And Adobe is good friends of ours. So this came immediately on the heels of this NTAG project, and the same guys did it. And so we chose Arctic for the landscape theme. And back to the paper. We're cutting out, this is the early iceberg experiments. Kind of figuring out what the best, we decided the little pyramids with the, this is like comparison. Which one looks better? Or hot glue and paper. So again, you might recognize the piece of paper, that's the sky. From the other thing, now it's the water. It's the iceberg pile. And they put the little plexiglass on there to get like a water reflection. Piles of icebergs. There's a little ice cave the guy built, there's a little polar bear. It's kind of coming together. And they did a new sky background. Oh crap, what happened? Oh, it happened. Now I gotta stand on my computer. Shitty. All right, well, that sucks. Walrus attack. And guess what? Check it out, it's a smoke machine. I don't even know why. I'm like, why are you doing this? You're taking pictures with smoke. And they're like, it just gives it this nice kind of effect. I wish I'd, oh, there it is. He did this thing. He would push the smoke out and then he'd go like this. to make the smoke like go. Because I guess the thing with the way it's sprayed, it wasn't like dispersed enough. So it just like, there we go. That was very cool. Okay, so then, like I said, this was transferred into a lot of different. So this is kind of how it turned out. Talk over this. So the idea was to do this kind of Northern Lights thing. So this is the interactive part, and then you click on the icebergs, and then you can kind of create these colors in the air that follow your mouse around. So this behavior, this kind of animation came, going back to the point earlier, came from a developer just experimenting with behaviors and motion and doing colors, and then a designer kind of gave him some art to put to it. So it was like a really pure collaboration between the developer and the designer. And then when you unveil everything, you get the logo and the Yeti. No, the Yeti was illustrations. It's not paper. That was badass, seeing our shit on a billboard. It was cool. And these giant screens. Incredible. There, see, NTAG at the end of the system. So that was a really fun project, and came out really nice. And we also, as another part of that, we had they gave us a booth at Max to like display the stuff and talk about it. And so the guys on the team, these are you've seen those Hulk gloves? They got the Hulk gloves and made them into Yeti gloves. And they put a Wii controller in one of them and built an application so you could look at the site and control the colors by moving the gloves around. So we had that set up at Max. Just fun. Questions about icebergs, Max, paper, Yetis? This is a project. This is a client project that we did a while ago for this movie, 30 Days a Night. Anybody seen it? For those of you who haven't seen it, it actually has sort of a funny premise. It's about vampires who learn that there's this town in Alaska that has 30 days of darkness every year. And they go and just whip ass. And it was based on a graphic novel by this guy, Ben Templesmith. And the reason I have it in here is just because I worked on it, and I've got a lot of there's a few like interesting techniques that we use to just create art that kind of goes into this, get away from the computer and start this, if you haven't noticed, there's a theme here of the stuff we make ends up digital, but sometimes it doesn't start there. You can do, we like to get away from the computer, make a mess, use your hands, things like that. So here's a little, another kind of, this is just sort of, this is the sizzle for the site. So the concept is you come to the site and it starts out as daytime. And as you can kind of explore the town, you can scroll back and forth. And as you stay on the site, at some point the sun goes down and it becomes night. And then like that. This is all actual site footage. And then the rest of the time you're on the site, it's nighttime. And freaky stuff happens. Another element of this was there was a multiplayer game you could go and play, fight other people. I'm going to skip. This just goes on for a while. Oh, this is a game. I'll talk about this in a minute. This is a little game that was like built into the site. You could just go to a part and start playing and shoot vampires. So all the content's kind of housed up in this inky thing, and then there's little animations that happen as you explore. And then this is the multiplayer game. There's another part of it. Bless you. All these sound effects for people in the studio going like, and make all these noises. Oh, this game too, usually for this movie stuff, the MPAA gets involved, and we can't use blood, like real blood. Oh, this is the old NTAG with Celine. But in this case, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to start this again. In this case, the MPA let us put an age gate on the game, so you had to prove you're 18, and then we could go all out and be all bloody. I'll show you the results in a minute. So these kind of inky effects, and the thing when it pours down from the top, we took a tank of water and lit it and filmed it with an HD camera and dripped ink into it. This is stuff, this becomes part of our kind of stock library. This stuff showed up in other projects too, for mask effects. This one's really cool. So that's, I don't even remember from the deal.
So do you guys have a lot of motion designers there and like VFX people and stuff like that?
That's a good question. That's the ink stuff. Question was, do we have motion designers and digital effects people? I actually had a slide in here that I took out because I didn't know if it was appropriate for this crowd, but it shows, it's kind of a breakdown of who uses what kind of software. I think even still, which is surprising, at shops like us, designers just do like flats, and then especially when working in Flash, you got like the Flash guys who break everything out and do the animation and programming. We go back and forth a little more. Our programmers are more high-level programmers, who are like really writing code, and almost all of our designers have motion chops. And most of the motion we do for these sites even is done in After Effects, because you can have a lot more expressive. So a lot of the animation actually starts in video. There's not as much done directly in Flash, except for like coded animations and things like that. So we have some designers who are kind of specialized in illustration, some who specialize in motion, but everybody knows a little bit of everything, and there are a lot of motion guys. I mean, animation's a big part of what we do. So, we've done just animation pieces. We've done a little bit of broadcast work, very tiny bit, and then we realized we don't really have the infrastructure for it. So, we did 3 or 4 years ago. We did all the animations that are on the Times Square signs on New Year's Eve for Target. So yes, do a lot of motion work, a lot of After Effects work.
How do you facilitate like growth with new technologies and getting people to learn different platforms, different things that are coming out all the time? Like,
That's a great question. The question is, how do we facilitate people learning new technologies? All this stuff, all these experiments, all the internal projects is one of the biggest ways. Another way is we've got a very robust internship program, and just the way we sit on teams, like in art, we have young designers come in, they work directly with an art director, and there's a lot of mentoring and teaching, and they want to learn After Effects, and they want to learn the things they don't know. We also do weekly, or mostly weekly, maybe every other week, show and tell sessions where the whole crew gets together in the conference room and somebody talks about web standards or animation or a project they've been working on or certain techniques. And we just recently started having visitors come in and talk about stuff. But yeah, I mean, the reason we do these internal projects is, like I said before, you gotta keep up. You gotta keep reading, keep learning, and stay up on what the possibilities are, what the capabilities are, what the best techniques are. You know, I mean, we describe ourselves as innovation-led. So in order to innovate, you got to do stuff in between projects, because it's rare that you get a client that wants to risk, because innovation kind of is inherently risky in a lot of ways. So, you know, it's not often you get a client like Nike who's ready to kind of make a leap and do something nobody's done before. So we do a lot of proof of concept stuff, like Hope versus Despair. We can put in front of a client and say, hey, here's a little moving thing we made. It's really cool. Check it out. People love it. So that's, you know, that's what we do. This is, like I said, you remember the little game, the guy running around? Sort of a dream. Sorry? The sound. We have a sound designer who used to be full-time at the ship and moved to California, and now we work with on contract basis. He does all music and sound effects, and if anybody's looking for a sound designer, this guy, he's amazing, completely amazing. He can do anything. Stephen Hoddy. Other questions? Yeah. So this game is actually sort of a fantasy lived out. It's the guy with the gun as an art director, and the guy running is the producer on the project. He really got into this role. It was a little frightening. There's a great look from Garrett in a minute. Kind of like, whoa. Oh, they're rehearsing. This is rehearsal. Okay. So you know what we do what we need to do to get the job done. This is again a clip from the multiplayer game, the running around the bloody. This is a good example of the action. This guy. Notice what happens to the axe. Oh, he chopped his own head off. That sucks. Goes backwards in a minute. Whoop. Now the cool thing about this, about the game, as I mentioned before, this is based on a graphic novel by this guy Ben Templesmith who did the art, and the movie studio is able to put us in touch with Ben, and he actually did original art for the characters for the game. We decided to make the game more styled like the graphic novel, and I just noticed a freaking typo, vampire. I never noticed that before. That's crazy. It's like a new breed of vampire. It's worse. It's a vampire. So we sent him. We just sent him just like rough descriptions of the kind of characters we needed for this game, and like alpha male vampire, and he sent back art, just front and profile, and our 3D guy did these. Just used that. This guy is super talented too. Created these kind of cell shaded 3D renders. The only thing we had to change is this. Ben Tilson makes this dude's feet giant. It's like Garfield. These big clown feet. So we're going to animate these things running around. They're going to run like clowns. So we had to shrink their feet a little bit. So then we got the alpha female, male vampire. This one's good. Generic vampire, Euro. Because in the movie they talk this weird like ancient kind of Slavic kind of Eastern European weird dialect. So they're kind of Euro. Sheriff, civilian, female civilian. Burly, svelte. All right, so the motion for these guys, the little animation, the 3D guy did that too. So the process for this, for all you people who are in the, get your hands dirty, created these, come up with the animations we need. The 3D artist does the animations in the 3D software, renders them in a couple, as you notice, they're running in like four directions. So we render them in actually 2 directions if you notice closely when they flip, the axe changes hands. Details. But again, that's the compromise for file size. We don't want to load the difference between loading 4, directions and 2 directions is a big difference. So we come up with the animation style described in 3D Designer. He does that, sends them in. The designer pulls them into After Effects and adds effects like muzzle flare for gunshots and blood and things like that. Puts that into Flash, where we add more like blood effects and different layers and things like that, and then code it up.
Is that all built in Flash, that whole game?
Yeah, the game's all Flash. It ended up deployed in Flash. So, So this time, so we've done these games before. This is based on an engine that I wrote like 6 years ago, and it's kind of grown over time. And so we're kind of familiar with this process. And Dave, in the past, we've described like, oh, I need this guy to punch. Like we did a game for Spider-Man. He's like, I need Spider-Man to throw a punch. And then Caius, the 3D guy, would send back a thing, and it wouldn't be quite right. So it'd be like, oh, it's not quite right. We have to, rendering these things takes some time. So this time, Dave figured out a way to make sure that he got the animations right. So what you're going to see here is Dave, the design director, and then and what he is doing happened first, and then what the thing in the corner it was based on. Right? Ready? This is sped up. This is not how fast the game went, whoa, I guess that's the end. Either that or my computer crashed. Yeah, that's it. So, whoops, I'll play it again. So yes, that's how it went. So that's all I got. Thank you, Denver. These are websites. Our site, Labs, is our blog for the design and dev teams to post stuff we play with, like the knives, and we post a lot of nerdy code stuff and iPhone stuff and things like that. Think is our strategy team's blog. They blog about ideas. It's my email, Twitter. Don't expect a lot from me on Twitter. It's best quality versus quantity. And thank you. And now questions.
How much feedback did the client give to you guys? Like, are they really involved in projects, or is it like you guys are working internally and developing it, and then you kind of hand it off to the client?
The question is, how involved do clients get feedback and controlling, I guess, the creative process stuff? It really depends. We want to involve the client, especially in the strategy phase, because we don't pretend to know the brand as well as the client does. And we want to partner with them to learn about it and make sure we're getting their message across the right way. Creatively, it really depends. Some clients just let us go and then we show them what we got. Some of them want to see stuff every day. And but we've never really had too much of a problem with. We've had one client was. There's always horror stories, but we've had clients that don't understand digital. We found with this one client said, "Oh, well, the type's too small. The type's too small." They kept saying the type was too small, and then we found out that the person who was saying the type was too small was reviewing the designs that somebody had printed out for them, and they're looking at the web page printed out on on a letter size piece of paper. Like, type's too small. It's like, oh god. So there's always that kind of stuff, but we haven't really. There's no like really major horror or the people like having tight control over what was what.
Question.
Yeah.
What process do you generally go through when you're bug testing, quality control, all those things with your projects?
Quality control, bug testing. We have a very small QA department, and we probably don't. I mean, our schedules are so tight. We try to schedule in time for QA, but a lot of it happens like right at the end on the fly. I mean, we're not as rigorous as we probably should be, but we bang on the stuff. People, we've got one guy who's dedicated to QA. It's all he does. So he starts testing stuff as early as possible, and then producers test stuff. We let other people on other teams test stuff, and usually the client will have people who are also testing things at the same time. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, the good news about deploying for web is that if you catch something, it can launch, and then you can fix it, right? We just did our first iPhone app recently, which is a whole other story because that shit's got to work, or you're screwed. You got, especially with Apple, because it takes however 10 days to approve it if you have to fix something. So yeah, I mean, we're not, we're a tight operation, so people multitask, and producers will be QAing, and interns, just get whoever we can to bang on stuff and try to break it as much as possible.
Do you guys utilize development methodology like Agile or XP or anything like that?
Okay, nerdy question about if we do development philosophy like Agile or XP, which XP is extreme programming, where two people are working in, in the same computer and the same keyboard, which I think is cute. Maybe. I don't know. We don't give them names. I mean, people probably would see what we do and say, "Oh, it's an agile developer," but we haven't read books or said, "Oh, we're going to do this philosophy." The designers and developers are collaborating so closely that we do everything's kind of on the fly, and different projects need different kind of techniques and different flows of information. But there's a lot of files bouncing around. There's a lot of people getting into files. The dev team itself, we've standardized as much as possible, so any developer can hopefully look at another one's code and know what's going on if they need to pick it up and fix something or learn something. And we usually have more than one developer working on a project if it's a big project. But we don't. We haven't picked a method and said this is how we're going to code, But I'm sure how we work would probably fit into one of those, but we don't, as a practice, study them or focus them. That make sense? Okay. Question?
You said you had some copywriters?
Copywriters, yes. We have one full-time copywriter right now. We have another freelance copywriter.
Okay.
All the voice of Big Spaceship, she is totally embodied. She was actually the one in the mustache picture going like this with the hat.
Okay.
She's awesome, Jessica. She's hysterical.
How would you say their role, your place, differs from, say, traditional agency?
How does copywriter's role differ? She's really involved in a lot of levels. She gets deeply involved in strategy. She doesn't just sit there and say, here, write this. She comes to all brainstorming meetings, offers ideas, really kind of internalizes, gets exposed to the whole process, so she really knows what's going on and offers ideas. She's part of the strategy team, that's what we say. So she gets involved in that process, and then so she can really understand the voice of something. And she's also become kind of the voice of the spaceship. We decided a kind of personality we wanted to get across through the site, and she puts it all into words and does an amazing job. She's really great.
How open-minded are you guys about designers within your company that have more of just a print background rather than the motion?
The question is, designer. How do we feel about hiring print or working with print designers? We have some designers who, we just hired a guy who's more kind of from an information design background, more static stuff, and he's got some motion jobs, but not much. Different designers have different focuses. We do a lot of different kind of work, and especially recently we've been doing more kind of information design. Stuff I didn't show. We did a redesign of Billboard Magazine and Hollywood Reporter, which is really just information, data management, getting stuff out there. It's a very different kind of design skill than motion stuff. So there's definitely room for people like that. We're such a small company that we need people to have as many different kind of facets and skills as they can, because who knows what they're going to be working on. We can't say oh, we're going to wait for a static design job or a more information thing for this person, because if it doesn't come in, they're going to have to get on something else. So the kind of nature of the work and the environment encourages people to spread out and do different things. But people do, have their strengths, and we know that. We'll try to push stuff their way that fits. Yeah.
Two-part question. So in terms of how you staff and how the mix of developers and designers, strategy and producer, what is the relative, are there 2 designers for every developer?
The question is roughly how many people of each discipline do we have, or what's the percentages? Each team right now, we're operating very lean right now. Each team right now is one producer, an art director, a designer, and a developer, and then interns. So they're pretty small teams. There's 4 of them. So there's about as many producers as there are developers, and there's about twice as many designers. So more designers than anything else. And then we've got a handful, a couple strategists and writer and lots of interns right now. So we've always had, the design team's always been the biggest.
Right. Okay. And then, I guess this comes from that, on 30 Days of Night, is that 30 Days of
Yeah.
Roughly how many hours? You guys track hours? Like,
Yeah, we do, but I never look at it. The question is, how long did that
How many
take?
hours?
Yeah. The question is, how many hours did 30 days a night take? I don't know. The game and the site were on a parallel track, so there was one team working on the game, one team working on the site. And the site probably took a couple of months, maybe 3 months, maybe two and a half months, something like that. And the site, I mean, the game probably took about the same. But the game is based on a engine that's existed for 5 years. If we were going to write that game from scratch, it would probably take like 6 or 7 months at least, because it's a lot of logic for lobbies and how this whole thing works. But generating the art and stuff, yeah, usually. I mean, the Nike site we did from beginning to end, from concept to delivery in like 7 weeks, which was totally criminal. But sometimes that's what happens. Schedules are never long enough, but generally a project will be. I mean, and then, we just worked on a project for. We just launched a site for Second Life for Linden Lab, which we've been working on for like 7 or 8 months with really deep strategy. The first couple months was just strategy and discovery, and then design for a while. So it ranges, but that kind of thing we can usually bang out like 2 or 3 months. Yeah.
Looking at some of those brands, the big brands, obviously, Sony Pictures, all that. I'm just curious about, your shop. Very often, you're doing a lot of things yourself. You're using your own staff in the productions of things. You dress one guy up as a vampire. Very cool. But what kind of assets do you usually get from these larger kind of corporations? Do you get anything? For Corona, you just get here's a beer bottle. Go nuts.
That's a very good question. The question is, what kind of assets do we get from the big companies? From Corona, we got a beer bottle. And now they were really freaked out about how the beer bottle was represented. I think they sent us renders. For the comps and stuff, we took pictures. And then they're like, no, that's not going to work. And they sent us they sent us renders of the beer bottles that we had to use. They had to look a very particular way. They have to be like just the right amount of moist. It's ridiculous. But it really varies. 30 Days a Night was pretty much in the can by the time we worked on it. So we pretty much could go through the movie and say we want this digital, like this scene and this soundtrack and stuff like that. We did a site for War of the Worlds, and they sent us like 2 photos and wouldn't even tell us what the movie was about. Like we had to ask yes and no questions because it was so secret. We're like, are there aliens? Yes. Do they kill people? Yes. How do they kill people? I can't really tell you. Is it with lasers? No, sort of. It's just like, oh God. So that's and like sometimes, a lot of times like Da Vinci Code and the Bourne, we did a thing for Bourne Ultimatum. We have to go out to LA and like sit in a room and read the script, and then sign something and leave and take notes and come back. It's like, this is what happens, and explain it to people. And like the Bourne movie, God, it's so hard to explain, especially just reading it. It's impossible to tell what's going on. So it depends. Sometimes we get tons of stuff. Sometimes we get nothing. Nike, we got photos of the shoes, and we did all the casting and all the shooting and things like that. Films, when we do film sites, obviously there's a lot of visual assets because it's a film. So, but we don't always get stuff like War of the Worlds. So it varies.
But usually you probably have the budget or whatever to accommodate whatever to bring the story to life.
You would think.
You'd think.
Yeah, we do what we can.
Yeah.
We did a site for vitamin water for Glass O, and we actually had to create our own renders, 3D renders of the bottle, which actually came out really nice. And I think they used it for other stuff. So, but they sent us vitamin water. That actually, the video with Dave at the end, did you notice the flashlight? He actually had a bottle of vitamin water. That's when we were working on that, so we had vitamin water everywhere. And there was another scene. Oh, he had the gun. There was this whole era of these fake guns. That's a bad scene. There was a blog post about it. We had those guns that shoot those little yellow BBs. There was a lot of shooting of people in the office, and then they got banned. The office was demilitarized.
So when you guys are concepting and working out ideas, are you all working towards a certain goal? Like, do you have like something that you're looking for in your idea before you move into production?
The question was, how do we focus our brainstorms, I guess? Like, what do we have a target for? So the strategy team's job is to, talk to the client, figure out the business goals, the marketing goals, the message, and then like synthesize that to the rest of the crew. So as much as possible, everybody understands what's trying to be communicated. Then we end up with themes and messages and stories, and we try to condense that down into lines, or like for Nike, everything you've never seen is just beyond where you always stop, or something like that. Not so much a tagline, it's just sort of a like a message, like a condensed message that we can kind of work around. And then from there, typically our brainstorms we try to start as blue sky as possible, just kind of think of anything. And then later, kind of rein it in and hone it down to either the schedule restrictions or budget restrictions or scope restrictions or things like that. But usually they're, we try to have like, it's hard to, being creative, it's hard to brainstorm on demand, get people in a room and be like, come up with ideas right now. So we've tried a lot of different processes for facilitating the best kind of idea generation. If we have a policy that if you're in a brainstorm and then there's like a silent pause, everybody we just call it off. It's like at that point you're just not going to get any ideas. But we try to do workshops, do a lot of things with like Post-it notes, have people write words. And we've got a room, our conference room, we painted, it's about, I don't know, like 20 by 20, maybe bigger. And we painted 2 of the walls with whiteboard paint, dry erase paint, which is killer. It's amazing. But don't be anywhere near when they paint it because the fumes will absolutely destroy you. So we just, a massive whiteboard space and just try to crank out ideas.
So you kind of have just like a bunch of people in one room kind of bouncing off each other? Like traditional shop, you have like an AD copywriter team?
Yeah, that doesn't work in digital. The AD copywriter thing that's why traditional agencies don't understand digital, because they think, it's art and copy, art and copy, art and copy. It's not art and copy. It's art, copy, functionality, technology, platforms. It's so much beyond that in digital. There's just so many ways to go. You have to have, that's why we have people from every discipline in there to understand what can be done. Art and copy is great for a TV spot where you can come up with a script and give it to a director, and the director can put his style on it, right? But once you have a script for a television spot, it's like a known quantity later. It's like you're going to cast and shoot. Digital, it's wide open. There's new stuff every day you can do. I'm going to start listing off the stuff you can do, but it's just, you have to know what's possible. And you can't just be like riffing off of whatever the buzzword is. So we're going to do UGC, user-generated content. YouTube's big, let's do somewhere you upload video. Twitter's big, let's do some on Twitter.
So what would you recommend to a traditional agency that's trying to get into the digital realm and trying to make something happen there?
What would I recommend to a traditional agency trying to get into digital realm? I would recommend, we kind of believe in networks of specialists. We focus on what we're good at and work with other companies, and we tell that to our clients. We say, we do this well. And if we need something that we don't do, we'll find another small agency that does it really well. I would say work with a really good digital agency and work with them as true partners. Bring them in early and either, even if it's going to be you eventually want to start your own practice and bring people in, do it by experience. See how these people work and listen to them and understand that there are people with digital expertise. You have to be in that world to know it. You really got to have somebody dedicated to learning the technology and understanding what you can do. And it's not just like, I read Wired, or I know that whatever the dude on CNN, they're doing Twitter on CNN. It must be cool, let's put them on Twitter. There's so many people doing stuff wrong, and that stuff will just, get shot down so fast. Everybody hear about the Twitter RFP? Guy put out this, oh my God, this guy, we actually worked with this guy on another project, and this guy went as a creative director in his agency, and he wanted to find a production agency to do some project, and he put it out on Twitter. He's like, submit your RFP over Twitter. It'll be cool. And the thing just crashed and burned. It was ridiculous. There's questions everywhere now. Start in the back, everything's in the front.
You get the project in, do you throw a bunch of fumes at it to decide to get this? Do you just determine one, or do you do
That's a good question. Was we get a project in, do we put a team on it from the beginning? Is there some sort of competition to see who gets it, or how does that work? There was a little time when we would just like pick a team to brainstorm, whoever was free. But for concepting and brainstorming, the best bet is to get people who, it's too often you like pull a team in and then we'd find out later that, this guy and this other team is really particularly interested in that or knows a lot about it, and he wasn't in the brainstorms. So what we usually do for brainstorming is We'll start out with as big a group as we can. We'll just put out a call. We have an internal blog that is WordPress and uses a theme that kind of posts stuff just like a stream, almost like Twitter, and people just check it all day long. So we'll just put something up that says like, hey, we're having a brainstorm this time. Whoever's interested, come. And we'll start with a big group, and then anybody who, sometimes you can't brainstorm with a huge group forever. You got to pare it down, or it'll just be, you'll just get nowhere. So we start with a big group, get ideas, try to pick out people who are like either generating good ideas or who seem to be keyed in, understand it, and then we kind of hone it down to a smaller group. But then what we do is when we get the smaller group, then we get the ideas refined. We always take it back to the bigger group later and present, say, here's where we arrived. Does anybody have anything to add, or how does everybody feel about this? And then, as much as possible, we want people working on something that they, helped to brainstorm. But the schedules and just the sheer fact that the client comes in and says, hey, we want an idea for this, and then we put out a proposal with ideas, like, great, we're going to do it. We're going to start this month. And they're like, oh, no, we're going to start in 3 months. So who knows if that team's going to be available at that time. So it's not uncommon that a team will brainstorm something, or people will, and they won't end up working on it. But, just like I said, we don't have any assholes, so it's okay. It's not like, this isn't my idea. I don't want to work on it. But we never get any of that. So did that answer your question? Okay, cool.
I only have time for one more question.
Oh, no, only one more question. All right, who wants it? Who's got a good one? You haven't said anything yet. So.
When you go to a client with like initial talk, do you typically have like one big idea, or do you ever have more than that?
Every other question? So when we go to the client with initial accounts, we have one big idea or more than that. Usually we present options. Usually we'll go with some sort of large theme, sort of like an idea, and then present different possibilities for execution and see what they like. Or if possible, even better, we go with like really loose ideas, like a bunch of them, and then see what they latch onto, and then kind of go back for another round, in our ideal world, and then kind of hone in on what they like. But nothing ever works right, so sometimes we just have to rush stuff out, or only can do a couple of things. And it's just the other thing about, we tell our clients, which is not always worked out, that we like to be, the discovery and the kind of coming up with the ideas and brainstorming is part of the value we offer. It's what they're paying us for, so we like being paid for it because it takes time. Giving away ideas for free is no fun, and it's not good for the bottom line, and it really sucks. You can't put enough resources into something. So the whole, the idea of, it's still a very common client say, oh, submit this, we want all your creative ideas to determine who's going to get the job, without giving us the opportunity to really learn about the brand or work with the client at all. We're just in a vacuum, and it's basically just a crapshoot. Is if you throw the dart and hit exactly what they were thinking of or something like this, then you get it. If not, you don't. Or if not, then they realize they like your idea anyway, and they pay somebody else to build it, which really sucks. So we, it's again part of our kind of how we try to train our clients is that if the way to get the best ideas. We actually had a client acknowledge this on the phone once. Somebody called us and said, yeah, we're looking for ideas, and we say, oh, we don't usually do competitive bids where we have to give ideas for free. Usually that's part of our engagement. And she said, well, nobody else says that. And okay, and for some reason we talked for a little bit longer, and then later in the call they said, this is actually our second round of ideas. We did a round before and got a bunch of bad ideas. We're like, oh, hey, what a surprise. Get what you pay for. So we didn't end up working with them. But it is, and sometimes obviously we judge projects by the 3 Fs, which is fun, fame, and fortune. So it's, if it's going to be fun to work on, is it going to be a potential for good press, or awards aren't an end goal. Like, to win awards isn't, we're not like, oh, we're out to win awards. But if a project is recognized and you do win awards, it can help, bring you recognition to get other projects. And fortune, obviously, if it's a good margin. So we try to say, if 2 of those things work out, then usually we'll try to take on a project. For Nike, for example, it was lots of fun, lots of potential fame, and not really any fortune. So, but we knew like this was an opportunity to work with, Nike's just such a great brand. So we killed ourselves on that and did a ton of free work, and luckily got the job. we have all these principles and have all these things I taught you about. This is how we do it. May not be right for everybody. It works for us. We like it. We have a good time every day. Take what you want. I don't want to preach. I don't want to say like this is how you got to do it right. We've been doing it for a while, and we think we know what works for us. So, but rules are meant to be broken, and we got to pay the bills. So sometimes we'll do what we can. That's a good way to end, isn't it? All right. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks so much. This is great.